welcome to another orange day. Today's a little bit of a weird day for me because I woke up wanting...
Oh, I forgot about that part. I forgot I woke up today. You know, a weird thing about these glasses is that although they filter out everything and turn it into kind of like the filter filmmakers use on Mexico, where it's orange, green comes through real nice. So like, oh, it's a mess in here.
Regardless of that, whoa. So I'm looking like how this recording actually works is that there's a PC connected to a little like Logitech camera, and the PC is meant to face me so that I can get an idea of what you see, because that's how I do it now. My computer just freaked out and loaded like 50 different applications that completely blocked my vision, and this is like the biggest thing I hate about all modern computer operating systems. Why do they always open windows in front of the window you're currently using? That's an awful idea. It's like, oh, I'm using the computer. I'm using the computer. Here's 50 things in front of you between me and the thing I want to use. Why are they not opening behind it? Like, I like to hit something, let it load, and then, you know, go back to what I'm doing, but then suddenly that thing pops up in front of me, and like, no, I hit it to load so that when I... With that said, I had woken up this morning and I kind of wanted to do one of my animations like I normally do. But I ran into the problem of my desk just doesn't feel the same way it used to. My desk used to have a little mini terrarium on it. And I wonder what happened to that. Oh, well, guess what? It still exists. Now, crazy thing is, how did I bring this halfway across the country in this state? And the answer is carefully. The problem being, it's not in a good state. This thing has been running for years now. You may remember from a previous video, or not, this is a self-documentation channel, so I'm just documenting myself. I don't expect people to watch this. You're not watching this. Maybe you are, I don't know. But I doubt it. It's gross. I'm going to take the whole thing apart, figure out what's going on in there, clean it, and rebuild it better. Very simple. It'll probably take me 30 minutes. The video won't be 30. The video's already probably 30 minutes long. Okay, so I had a glass lid. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dump out all of the liquid. Now, an examination of the liquid does seem to indicate, I don't know what that is. It's swimming, though. It looks like some sort of water beetle. You can see the plants, there's duckweed and... hard to direct my finger through. That's Salvinia. But that thing... don't know what it is. Some liverworts, which is Rixia, I believe. But otherwise, it's not that interesting of a fluid. The internal structure seemed to have become overgrown with moss, which is currently dry and somewhat dead. However, underneath it, there does seem to be a layer. Okay, so having removed additional water, I have found that guy. There is a aquatic salamander. He's only about an inch long, living
That's a little bit better of a view of the salamander. Again, only about an inch long. Now, obviously I must have put him in there at some point, but not on purpose. Most likely he came in on some of the plants and has just been there ever since. It almost looks pretty in its own way. The cleaning process requires industrial-grade vinegar. The byproducts of continuous exposure to the effluent of the concrete structures in the center have resulted in an overwhelming buildup of calcium carbonate.
Okay, it's clean. I've cleaned out the walls with a combination of vinegar and bleach. Not at the same time. That's a good way to end up. I also pulled this out and cleaned it. So, to review what this was originally intended as back in the day when Walmart was still marketing these, now about 20 years ago. I'm actually way older than I look, hopefully. This is a tiny model of an under gravel filter, is that you're supposed to put an air generator in there. The air going up pulls in material through the gravel around and up. That was designed to be a form of biological filtration, which do I want to explain biological filtration in its entirety? I'll explain it in one sentence. Gross water goes through dirt that has bacteria on it, and the bacteria make it clean again. More or less. The thing is, underground filters never really even worked in aquariums properly, let alone in an aquarium this small. It was mostly just sort of a feel-good thing before. Nowadays it's all sponge filters and internal power filters because we figured out how to actually make an impeller pump that's submersible. Weirdly, when they were making these, submersible technology hadn't been invented yet. It'd be like, oh, put electronics in water? Well, you're going to die. Well, now it's like we just connect plastic and it's sealed. The water can't get into the zappy part. Now, one of the errors that was present with this when I previously made it is there was a level of material that caused this to be elevated, so it couldn't sit exactly the way I would want it to. I also, I might have reviewed it in the hand cam footage, but these... To describe that smell is strange. So you know how, if you're walking around in the woods and you walk through some ferns, they have a distinct smell. They smell like ferns. It's that sort of fresh but not piney scent. Like green but not grass. Fresh but not piney. It's like an organic sort of leafy smell that's not like leaves at all. Imagine that with a little bit of sourness, low tide, tiny bit of low tide, and a sweetness too, which is what cyanobacteria is. Cyanobacteria tend to smell sweet. Maybe more low tide than I had thought. These are concrete that I made years ago now, probably 3 or 4 years. I mixed concrete with sugar, poured these out into the shapes I need with the holes, because the hole is where that tube fits, and then I baked them in the absence of oxygen to pyrolyze them into a carbony surface, and then over a very long time leached out a combination of sugar and calcium hydroxide to allow them to be biologically stable. They're now covered in biofilm. They're now pretty viable rocks for this application. But I'm going to use them a little differently in that I have all of these, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put... What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this substrate. I wonder if I can separate it somehow. I realized I can, but it's not going to be fun because I have a lot of cuts on this hand. Found them out while I was using the vinegar. Fortunately, I am, theoretically at least, immune to disease. Bloodworms and tube effects. That smells like feces, but more metallic. Kind of like a combination of dirt and the kind of smell that dead animals smell like. It's not exactly like feces. And there's just some extra water in there. The goal is I'm trying to get the rocks and not the sand right now for the lower level so the sand doesn't just completely clog the thing up. Now, on the subject of what could potentially be contaminating my fingers. So the reason why this sand, which if you've seen sand, like, why is it that color? Why is it so dark? The answer is complicated chemically, but ultimately results from the fact that this sand is in anaerobic conditions. So sand is normally sort of a brown color, right? At least this brand of sand was. When it's underground in an environment that doesn't have oxygen, bacteria tend to convert surrounding proteins into sulfur, which is how Winogradzki columns generate their sulfur supply. That sulfur binds to any metal it can find, which there's trace metal in everything. Rocks are basically just metal oxide. There's some sort of a metal in this rock, and it's probably silicon mostly with trace amounts of other stuff. Silicon's sort of a metal. Not really. It looks like a metal. No, not really. It looks like metallic glass.
Silicon looks like this. This is what silicon looks like. It looks like metallic glass. Feels kind of like metal. It's heavy like metal. That's a big chunk of pure silicon.
Silicon isn't the issue here. It's the rocks, other substances binding to sulfur and producing sulfides, which is why sewage sludge is black. It's sulfides from hydrogen sulfide binding to metal. That's what turns the sand and the rocks dark colored. If you were to put them in bleach, it would undo it and probably turn the sand.
You can see it's kind of it's not going to focus properly, but it's sort of a dark gray color. You're making me get distracted from what I'm trying to do. Huh. It's changing a little bit. Oh yeah, it's changing a lot. I can't see it because I only see orange, but it's actually changing the sand back to sand color, like I said it would.
That's right. This bleach is a great value. I use it on everything. It's great for... Redact that. What I was getting at was anaerobic stuff tends to contain high amounts of Clostridia. Clostridia is a big group of bacteria that causes a lot of bad things, one of which is tetanus. So, like, you really don't want to be handling anaerobic stuff. The thing is, my skin is aerobic. Oh, actually, that did make me tired. What I mean by that, ew, there actually are worms. But they're dead, so they're just rotting. Anaerobics, my skin has air in it, so generally, no matter what you stick your hand in, you're not going to get tetanus on surface level injuries. It's only deep injuries where oxygen from the atmosphere cannot penetrate. Clostridia die when they're exposed to oxygen, just like me. So that's the lowest layer of sand and stuff. And that, you can see, let me take this off for just a second. Oh, my unprotected shaved eyes. Distinctly different colors. The bleach has undone the darkness of the sand. When I say my eyes shaved, I actually more closely mean they took a large brush to them, like a dental Oral-B, and they ground down my corneas until they were completely naked to the air. And then, yeah. Weirdly didn't hurt nearly as much as you think, but you can definitely feel it. So with these, the goal now will be to reconstruct around that pipe, but the level is going to be different. So the bottom one probably won't be necessary. That's the largest. So I'm going to start with the next largest and see if I can reconstruct that one. And it looks close enough. So I actually measure things. So I seat the first one. Somebody drove by. I seat the second one. That's a pretty effective third one. Then I add the last. and it sticks out just a little, which is fine. It's not quite as tall as it used to be, but I don't want it to be quite as tall as it used to be. Okay, the container is now substrate-wise rebuilt. The core is rebuilt. Now I just need to put the water, plants, and all organisms back in it. Alright. This is the sort of... That's just dirt. That goes away. This is just sort of the waste effluent right now. This is where all the living things are. That includes these hornwort fragments, which are little plants. I was just checking to make sure that the salamander didn't fall in the tiny hole and get stuck in the middle. No, he's still around the edges. Now, it is substantially shorter in terms of the area that's not underwater anymore. But that's okay. Now I've got... That's another rod of hornwort, which is a plant. Right now I haven't encountered too many new plants to put in here, so I've got these chunks of moss that are largely dead, but there's still some green in them. So that element is going to go back in the container in an attempt to rebuild the moss. Additional plants, as I find them, can be reintegrated. Some of the dead moss is okay because it acts as a substrate for new growth. I'm just packing it in the crack. It doesn't look great right now, but that's the way this works, is they never look great. If it looks great when you started, you've done something wrong. That's a key thing I'll say with like aquascaping or any of this stuff is, if it looks perfect, that means nothing's settled. Your plants haven't settled, your soil hasn't settled, the new growth hasn't started. That means it's not working. It has to settle out and get ready. It has to go. Now, one other modification that I think will be pretty cool to this whole concept. Why did I lower it? Well, one, because I actually want to try to run air through it to create flow. But this had previously been using this, which is a piece of glass which was sitting on top of it. It fits, but I kept hitting it. My body can't really perceive transparent substances well with my blind sight is a complicated subject, but basically your conscious vision and unconscious vision both utilize your eyes but connect to two different portions of your brain. I can consciously perceive there's glass here when I focus on it, but when I'm moving around not paying attention, it's a different part of my brain that's commanding stuff and doesn't tend to notice transparent things. Regardless, all of that, this is the original lid that this kit came with. Sort of. Now, you may wonder, why didn't I use this originally to cover it instead of a piece of sharp glass I keep running into? Two reasons. One, this is a bad design. It has metal screws that face water. They oxidized. It was really hard to get them out. I had to drill them out and like grind them away because you can't remove a piece of rust with a screwdriver. Second, this original design was meant to have a single incandescent light bulb in there. Incandescent bulbs are not great for plants because they're power hungry, produce a lot of heat, and all of the light frequencies they produce are not really usable by plants. But the astute viewer will notice there's not an incandescent light bulb in there. Although it's sort of yellowish in color, actually distinctly yellowish, so it doesn't really help on that front. That's an LED bulb, which produces a better quality of light in this instance. The technology has simply improved. That's a candelabra base. I think it's E11. Don't quote me on that, though. It's called a candelabra base in the United States. It's a very small form of light that you can now get, like the 1 watt bulb in LED. Meaning that since I lowered that tube somewhat, I can now... You know why I think that tube looked orange to me? Yeah, that's not orange at all. So I'm like, why is this light bulb so orange? Duh, that's the only color I can actually see. So, it'll sit on that like that. And then that can sit on my desk. Only uses 1 watt of power plus maybe 2 watts to power the air pump. and that'll give me something to look at and something to add more to. When I find more plant samples, more water samples, more new mosses, more new plants, I can go back to adding this. It's now rebuilt in a capacity where it's potentially usable again. It's not all messed up. Also, there's a salamander in it for some reason. I don't know what he's going to do about existing. He can just stay there, I guess. He's been there for a while.
So this is a much larger version, obviously way too big to sit on my desk, where I grow exotic ferns. As you can see, that's a 20-gallon aquarium, which I got half price, which was nice. The salamander is, in all likelihood, going to end up there, depending on various factors, but mainly timeline-wise, I put plants in there for the first time today, same day that I did the other terrarium, so I have to wait for the water conditions to stabilize. As you can kind of see, they're a little dim. I mean, they're not too much better over there, but that's mostly just taking the water that already existed and just putting it back in. This is an all-new setup that just got added, but his timeline, once this ecosystem stabilized, is probably pretty close.
So yeah, I wanted to work on drawing today, but looks like that's not going to happen. But at least I have the correct thing to now put on my desk so that I can look at something while I'm wasting my time on other things. I don't know if well, yes I do. I always consider these a success even when they're not. So I think this one actually turned out better than most. So let's go with that. If you watched this, you just spent like 15 minutes watching me clean a tiny aquarium. But that's what I did. Revisiting this project. That's all. Yeah, I need to wash my hands.